Shalom. First and foremost, I want to give all praises, honor, and glory unto Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahweh Shai, Bahashem, Rachakadash. Double honors to the apostles of Great Millstone, and peace and salutations to the Akim who are tuning into these videos. In this video, I want to showcase just a few news articles showing what's happening in the news. And I was also watching elder brother Yashawamba from Dallas, and in his video he was showing a lot of various things, because if you've been paying attention to the news, it's been things happening back to back, a lot of violence and bloodshed, and supposed plans to go to schools or whatever. I'm not really going to say certain key words just to keep the video up, but in this video he was speaking about this article that he had did prior times, and the article's title is "The U.S. Government is Waging Psychological War on Its Citizens." And so I'm not going to make this video to debate if this thing happened, did or not, or if it was a government psyop, because ultimately if it was, it's still going to accomplish what it was meant to do, which is to stir up the minds of the people and to corral them to going into combative modes with each other, and ultimately just enmity amongst each other, the love of many waxing cold. Now, with this article, I was already speaking on this one, a supposed 13-year-old shooter. He had a whole bunch of guns on his house, on his wall. He basically had a whole bunch of tools that are like 3D printed and things, basically, so that he could enact on doing a mass shooting at a school. And that's kind of a thing that happens quite frequently here in America. That's why I'm not going to really go into if it was really a psyop or not, because it may have or may have not. It's just that what we're seeing here is, biblically speaking, this place, America, which is known as Babylon the Great, is coming to its end. And it's throwing all these witchcrafts and fornications out to the masses so that it can get people riled up. And that is all pertaining to biblical prophecy, something that Yahushua, when he was speaking to his disciples in Matthew 24, is what he warned them about. And so with that article, going into that, expect more of these, either false or real. Expect more of these. Expect more random acts of violence on the bus, on people from Ukraine, immigrants or whatever, and expect more people to speculate on those things. And because all that's really doing is just getting people stirred up. And the main one that I wanted to speak about is this happened yesterday. This guy, Charlie Kirk, he was a talking head on YouTube or whatever. I never really followed what this guy was really all about, but what he would do is go to certain colleges and debate a lot of these liberal bug-outs. And a lot of his talking points are pretty valid, because anybody is right when you're going to a college debating a liberal bug-out. It's not that hard. But this guy made a platform of that, and he was just going around representing that supposed right-wing narrative, going against the left-wing narrative. So you had that dynamic that they were pushing. And so I guess this guy got sent to the spiritual realm. And so a lot of people are crying about it. Like everybody, all on my feed, on YouTube, a lot of these other talking heads are mourning this guy specifically. And so like with all these articles, you're seeing certain things about like how the assassin was outed to be transgender or whatever. I don't really know, nor do I really care, but I do see biblical prophecy speaking, because what is happening in these comment sections, what's happening in people who are watching these news articles, they're now tuning into that guy's videos. Now they're seeing that this American country is just full of confusion, and it's so divisive. The people are at wits with each other, and the tension is literally to its maximum. And that's all really just to fulfill biblical prophecy. And one article that I wanted to bring out, because it was just back-to-back shootings and supposed threats and things like that. Another thing that was also happening on the news was that the supposed this Epstein guy who was going to those islands and bringing all these famous people to his island. He had a birthday book, where he would bring all these famous people and he would write things into it. And supposedly Donald Trump, his letter was leaked, just showing you that all these people are really in cahoots. And it's not just Donald Trump, it's Bill Clinton and all these other presidential candidates. They're all basically in this wicked agenda, this wicked conclave of people performing wickedness and witchcraft. And so it's pretty safe to assume that because this letter came out, that all these other shootings started to happen, so that it's basically like a flashbang in the news. You're not seeing things about Donald Trump or this and that, but you are seeing about the people who were hurt or maimed on the bus on their way to home after work, or to that guy Charlie Kirk. That's the main things that's capturing the headlines. So, but with that being said, we do see that Esau Edom is moving in darkness. He's moving in the shadows to perform his enterprise and doing all these things, ultimately to do psychological warfare. And so when these things happen on the news, we're not dismayed, we're not aggro, we're not going crazy or taking sides, because ultimately we've already chosen the side of Yahweh B'Shem Yahushai, which is wanting this place to be destroyed. We don't give him any rest until he establishes and makes Jerusalem the actual holy place, the Israelites, the rulers of this earth. So that's our mindset. But if Esau Edom does a bunch of weird stuff in the background, we're still going to speak on it, whether it's real or fake. And so with that, this is Ephesians 6:12. It says, "For we wrestle not against flesh and blood, but against principalities, against powers, against the rulers of the darkness of this world, against spiritual wickedness in high places." And really, when we're out there on the highways and hedges, that is the best form of warfare, spiritual warfare. We're not out there doing crazy things or brandishing weapons like others do. We are out there just speaking what the scriptures say, speaking in the names of Yahweh B'Shem Yahushai, and letting that echo throughout the four corners of the earth. And these words are breaking strongholds, casting down the imaginations that this place once held tightly on these people. And you can still see that this government and Esau and all of the things that they're perpetuating, it still does have a grip on the minds of the people. But to the elect's sake, they are hearing this word. They're being cleansed and baptized, and now they're coming into the fold and pretty much disregarding whatever this world has to offer. So we're not dismayed at whatever happens, because we ultimately know that Yahweh B'Shem Yahushai is ultimately in control. And he ultimately is pushing these people to go aggro and against each other and raising those tensions. It's his determination to do those things. And so if he does these things in darkness or whatever, ultimately we know that this is just biblical prophecy speaking, and that we're getting that much closer to Yahushai's return, because these are the things that he spoke about. And I'm going to read this here in 2 Corinthians 2, and I'm going to start at verse 11. It says, "Lest Satan should get an advantage of us, for we are not ignorant of his devices." And so we're not ignorant that this devil is able to perform these things, or that an actual Edomite, a Joe Sixpack Edomite, just got up one day and chose violence. That's just in his nature to do. The only thing he's good at is the blessing of the sword. So we're not ignorant of this devil being aggro or working in secret, lying in the shadows. That's just literally the serpent's nature. And so we're not ignorant of his devices, nor are we ignorant of the prophecies of Yahweh B'Shem Yahushai. Before he returns, there's going to be a fire kindled down here. It's going to be World War III. It's going to be martial law. It's going to be famines. So you think the people are angry and at their wits right now? Just imagine when the staff of bread is broken and there's actual droughts. There's going to be actual killing each other over the lack of bread. Cannibalism is going to come back in a great way. And so I'm going to read this here in 2 Ezra 15, and you can read the first part of this chapter. We go into it a lot, but it goes into how this place is going to be hit with plagues as before. All the plagues that Egypt was hit with, this place is going to be hit with. Let's see. I'm going to start at... just give me 1 second. All right, so this is in 2nd Ezra 15, and I'm going to start at verse 14. Woe to the world and them that dwell therein, for the sword and their destruction draweth nigh, and one people shall stand up and fight against another, and swords in their hands. For there shall be sedition among men, and invading one another. They shall not regard their kings nor princes, and the course of their actions shall stand in their power. And so all these people are basically going to disregard their mayors, governors, presidents, or whatever, and they're going to do what they feel is right. Because in the predicaments that they're going to find themselves in, it's going to be life and death. It's going to be famines out here. It's going to be people eating each other and stealing the food and water resources or whatever. It's going to be like Mad Max out here. Like all these movies that depict that post-apocalyptic scenario, that's literally what's about to take place at this place. This is in verse 17. It says, a man shall desire to go into a city and shall not be able. Because this place, and so in verse 17, it basically goes into how it's going to be very hard to go into cities. Not just because of the scenarios that I'm explaining, but also because of martial law. So all the plagues that the Heavenly Father has prepared for this place is going to hit it all over and over and over again, back to back to back. So I'm going to continue on verse 18. For because of their pride, the city shall be troubled, the houses shall be destroyed, and men shall be afraid. A man shall have no pity upon his neighbor, but shall destroy their house with their sword, and spoil their goods because of the lack of bread, and for great tribulation. And so that's basically what's going to take place. Great tribulation. And all these things were foretold in the scriptures. And Yahushua had to emphasize that as he was speaking here in Matthew 24 to the disciples at the time. I'll read at the top. This is, and Yahushua went out and departed from the temple, and his disciples came to him for to show him the building of the temple. And Yahushua said unto them, see not all these things, verily I say unto you, there shall not be left here one stone upon another that shall not be thrown down. Speaking about the temple. I'm just going to jump down a little bit. No, actually, verse 3 was what I was looking for. It says, and as he sat upon the Mount of Olives, the disciples came unto him privily, saying, tell us, when shall these things be? And what shall be the sign of thy coming and of the end of the world? So the disciples were inquiring and curious about when these prophecies are going to happen. In verse 4 it says, and Yahushua answered and said unto them, take heed that no man deceive you. So whatever this devil is throwing out there on the news, we're not to be deceived. We're going to focus on prophecy, focus on salvation during these tribulous times. And so I'm just going to jump down to the point that I want to get at. This is in verse 7. It says, for nation shall rise against nation, and kingdom against kingdom, and there shall be famines and pestilences and earthquakes in diverse places. All these are the beginning of sorrows. So these are the beginning of sorrows that was going to happen. And just going to jump down to verse 10. There's also another point here, and it references, or it's a precept to what I was just reading in 2nd Ezra 15, about how people are basically going to go against each other. So in verse 10 it says, and then shall many be offended, and shall betray one another, and shall hate one another, because that's what's going to happen. Verse 11 says that many false prophets shall rise and shall deceive many. And that's, you're seeing a lot of deception out here, and a lot of false prophets leading a lot of our people, so-called blacks, Latinos, Native Americans, to the slaughter. And in verse 12 it says, and because iniquity shall abound, the love of many shall wax cold. And so the love of many is going to wax cold in a big way coming in these times during Jacob's trouble. And we're seeing the beginning of it already. With all these things that are happening in the news, people are going to want to take action on their own accord. But with that, I want to give all praises, honor, and glory unto Yahweh, Bahashem Yahushai, Bahashem Rachapadash, Shalom Makim.